Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Palworld 1.0 has dropped, and I did do a little bit of a live stream to celebrate its launch, but I figured I'd make a quick video to just give some tips to people actually starting out on it first time around. But this isn't going to be like your normal top 10 one where it's like, oh, go here, do this, go get this pal, do this thing. This is just general advice if this is your first time playing the game. First off, one thing you'll see me doing in the background, this is after I had played for a little bit. I went in to tweak the settings to actually make them fit what I enjoy a little bit more when it comes to playing Palworld. I'd probably recommend playing around a little bit in normal or casual just to see what the game is like before you actually adjust any of these. Personally, I like to crank up the experience rate, that way I can hit max level much faster, because one of the things I enjoy the most is actually building the bases. And there's a general trend in survival games, if you've never played one, where as you level up you earn points, and you can use those points to open up different things in your, basically your tech tree. And that will let you actually build stuff. So I prefer gaining experience quicker in order to actually unlock all the stuff that I want to do to build the base. That can be a little overwhelming if you're just starting out, so probably don't tweak that until you at least get a good handle on how the game flows. Next thing I would recommend changing in terms of the settings, I don't like death penalties. So I tend to turn it off. I have one playthrough that I just kind of abandoned on the channel where I was going through on hard mode, and the rule for hard mode was I couldn't change any of the difficulty settings. So it can be fun. It adds a little bit of risk to dying. I don't care if there's a risk to dying or not. What I actually prefer to do is turn the death penalty off. That way, if I'm out really far from base or from anywhere where I can teleport, I can just withdraw my pal and basically jump off a cliff or something in order to quickly get back to where I want to go. It's a bit cheap, yes, but I look at it like a fast travel with a delay. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. The other thing that I like to turn off is the time for egg incubation. Under normal circumstances, when you put eggs into an incubator, which this is a system you'll unlock after, I think it's around level 19, you got to beat the first tower boss before you can even do anything with eggs and incubation and whatnot, but this is a bit of a tangent. Breeding is going to be a really big part of your playthrough in Palworld if you actually really dive into it. It's a bit easier to get a handle on than it is in Pokemon, but it's also a lot more important if you want to actually start building super overpowered stuff. Is it absolutely necessary for the game? Not really. You can get through the story and everything without ever touching breeding. The very first time I played through, I didn't mess around with breeding at all until I got basically into the end game, and it's fine if you want to do that. But one of the things you need to be aware of is there's time. Like with the most basic incubators, it takes time for the egg to incubate and then hatch. So you can actually turn that to 0. So what that does is when you drop an egg into an incubator, it basically is instantly ready to hatch. The reason why I don't mind turning this off now, and I used to turn it off because I just didn't care. I don't need a justification. But I actually have a justification for it now. And it's that when you get to the very, very end game, the best egg hatching structure that you can make is pretty much instant anyway anymore. So there's not really a need to worry about it at this point. Now, all that being said, what else would I tell you? One thing to be careful of is when you go out to actually look for videos, if you're trying to find stuff that does give you advice, kind of check the date when they were published. You need to be finding stuff that's more recent. See, if you've been playing the early access for Palworld, you probably were aware that things were changing relatively rapidly, so you knew what to sort of keep an eye out for. But with 1.0, there was a massive number of changes from pre-release to release. That means there's a lot of out-of-date guide videos, especially if you dive into what we were just talking about, which is breeding. They basically revamped the whole breeding system in a way that shifted what results you get from different pairings. So a lot of your old videos that are going to recommend, hey, get this early, go out, find this new one, you can breed it together to breed into this really powerful pal. A lot of that doesn't really work anymore. And there's good reason for that. One of them is that you used to be able to go out and find some really early pals, like before level 20 type of thing, so that as soon as you unlock the ability to breed them, you could breed up some of the most powerful pals in the game. And they've done quite a bit of rebalancing and replacing in terms of where they've shuffled pals around and moved things around to try to make it to where the flow of the strength of the pals that you get will actually more naturally follow your progression through the game. Now, another thing I would recommend you do, aside from setting up your base, and this area that I'm actually building in is my favorite place to set up a base. Just to give you some idea of where I went to, when you first spawn in, if you go from that spawn point, just keep following the trail down and go all the way to where the first tower is, because it'll eventually mark that on your map. There's a little fast travel spot right beside it. From the fast travel spot, just turn around, come back. There'll be a valley on your left and then a hill. You go up that hill, there's an open world boss, and you just kind of skirt around the edge of it and you can get to the spot where my character is currently at. It's a decent place to start out a first base. If I can think about it later, or if I can find a clear image of the map, I'll drop that map in here so you can see it. But realistically, where you start your first base at, the only thing you really need is to have some nodes around or some resources for your character to be able to get farmed up relatively easily. It's not that much work to get to the point where you can drop a second base. And as soon as you can drop a second base, you can go deconstruct the other one and move it somewhere as well. So don't be too worried if you set up a base in the quote-unquote wrong spot. The only reason why you would want to wait until you can drop a second one to move it is simply so you can drop a second PAL box and then put some chests down. And as you deconstruct stuff in your main base, hop over and either rebuild it or drop the materials so that you don't have to try to slow walk your way from point A to point B. That's the only tricky part to swapping from one base to another. But I guess a really quick sort of sub-explanation here. If you're trying to move from base A to base B, build base B, put some chests right around your new PAL box, and you can just gather up materials in your main base, teleport directly to the secondary base, and where you poured in at your PAL box, the chests will be right there and you can just drop stuff in it. Because not everything will come out of your inventory from the mass drop, although most of it will. Most of the construction supplies will, at least. So moving is really not that big a deal now. But if you can set up a decent starting location, then you're good to go. And traditionally, where I'm at right now has been the base that I have sort of made my primary one, but I think in this playthrough, I'm going to switch things up a little bit, shift where my location is for my main base. Why? Because with 1.0, eventually you gain the ability to actually build on top of water. And there's a place that I think will make a very interesting mega base of sorts. Now, one warning if you're thinking, I'll build a couple bases near each other and then everything can be shared. That's not really how this works. You can build two bases in an area where they can see each other, but there's a few things to be aware of when you do that. Number one, if you're playing on PlayStation or Xbox, like I'm playing on PS5, there's a bit of a limit in terms of how many pals you can reasonably fit into an area and not have your system slow down. And if you put too many bases right next to each other, what will happen is all your pals will be spawned in and it would effectively treat it as if there's a base there with, say, like 40 or 50 pals. And that might start slowing your system down a bit. So you may want to take that into consideration. If you're playing on a decently powerful PC, by all means, do it whatever you want to. You can actually crank it up to where the cap of pals that you can have at a base is 50. If you leave it at default settings, I believe the maximum is 15. So you have to actually go in and be changing the settings. By the way, I should have mentioned this with the settings changes. Those don't affect trophies or anything like that. So if you really want to play around with the settings, like there's some aspect of this game that you just don't like, but you're liking the rest of it, please just dive into the custom settings and don't feel like you have to play the default way that the devs said this is what we're going to consider the default starting thing. The reason they put all those options in there is so you can actually tailor the game to fit the way you want to play it. Alright. Now, what about pals? Okay. If you really like a pal, you can probably find a way to make it work, especially if you're willing to dive into breeding. So, yet again, don't feel like you're being locked down by any of these guide videos out there. Like one of my favorite PAL YouTubers is Pal Professor. And it's because he's a really big numbers guy. He'll go through, do a bunch of tests, and tell you what the raw stats are for various things in the game, what the absolute min-max is. But even he'll tell you that things are close enough that unless you're really going with a suboptimal combination of different things, you're probably going to be fine. There's ways to skew the game where your player damage will be better. There's ways to skew the game where the PAL damage outpaces the player damage. The fun thing about Palworld is that ultimately you can actually get the game to fit whatever style of play that you really want to put into it. I believe this is one of the better games that has come out in a while. Like, it has been a great game since even its since its very first patch in beta. And all they've done is consistently make it better. So dive in, give it a chance, and just relax. Don't worry too much about being absolutely perfect. There's no such thing as a mistake in this game that you cannot recover from unless you're playing in hardcore mode, in which case there's a bunch of mistakes that you can't recover from. But that's a whole other beast, and I don't think too many people are going to start out in hardcore. Or at the very least, I wouldn't recommend you start out in hardcore. That's not for the faint of heart. It really is pretty hardcore. Anyway, just kick back, enjoy, and worst case scenario, just go ahead and pull up the VOD from the first live stream I did for 1.0, and you'll actually see me going through on my fresh start on this one. And it can give you an idea of what I think is a good beginner-friendly fresh start, because it's generally what I do. But otherwise, just kick back and have fun. Don't watch too many videos. Don't go into information overload. Give it a shot first before you really dive into a whole bunch of the tips and tricks type of videos. Alright, well, I'm not going to make a huge number of videos on Palworld unless I come across some cool stuff or it seems like it'd be fun to actually update people on what my bases look like. Like, if I get all the way through a base development and I think it looks really good, then I'll do that. I'm just more or less posting this to help boost the signal on it a little bit because I really enjoy the game. And when I do something on it, it is going to be just for fun thing. So, otherwise, I'll probably stream it a little bit occasionally. Anyway, thank you for tuning into the video. And I hope this was at least encouraging. Maybe not necessarily helpful, but encouraging. Have a good night, and remember, if I can beat it, so can you.